Okay, this stone, which is difficult to read, is Joel Cooper's stone, and it's a dark slate. I had a geologist advise me because it's so different than all the other stones in the cemetery. It's the only dark slate. Okay, he was 5 years old. He was the 5th child of his parents. There were 9 children in all, and he was the only one to die as an infant. Everybody else grew up and got married. There he was. His stone stood there all by itself. Nothing else here. A funny little frame building down at the end that was the church. This stayed this way for 2 years. Between the ministers and before James Pierpont's will was finally probated. Finally, they talked Isaac Stiles, who has the crypt that you see with the papers on it. He agreed to come. He was a Yale graduate. He is from Windsor, and he was married to the daughter of a very important clergyman, and he decided to come. Well, after he came, a lot of other people said, well, I believe we are going to have a community after all. And so several other people were buried here. And we'll look at some of their stones right down this way. One that's a little easier to read. This one. Okay, it has block letters, much like Joel Cooper's did. It still has no design at the top. Joel Cooper's did have a little bit of a vine down the side. It's very difficult to see. But I put this stake here so I could be sure and walk right to the stone.
Isn't it interesting the way it starts on the stone there?
Yes, and the thing, it's all capital letters.
Yes.
And so that made it makes it look old. And so several in this period are old, this age, this first period.
What was his name? J-A-E-S?
Ives.
Samuel Ives.
Yeah.
Samuel Ives.
The V looks like a U. I suppose it was easier to carve. Okay, now the next thing that happened was that more elaborate stones were done, and what we call the death head, or it looks like a skull. Actually, one on the other side is skull and crossbones. The skull came along. Actually, it had been in New Haven as early as 1675. So we'll see a couple of those death heads right over here. Can you see them?
Oh yeah, it is a skull.
Yeah.
Skull. Oh, there's one right here.
Yes. There.
One right here.
Yes.
Another one
No.
over there.
Yes, there are quite a few right in this area.
And then there's a heaven one. That's
Okay.
another one.
Came from up north, didn't they? Stones came from up north again.
Middletown.
They used to
Middle-
store them here.
Well, not yet. I'm coming to that. Okay. These stones really were trying to be deeply religious, warn people that death was coming and that they should be good men and women, and the verses are rather somber. What happened next was the Great Awakening. When the religious revival came around 1735, and people began to believe that you could get to heaven even if you hadn't had a conversion. So it's the new light, old light theory of religion, and so in the place of death, you have angels. So cherubs are spirit effigies with wings flying toward heaven. So your spirit would fly up to heaven, symbolized on your stone. Now, there are several interesting, now why don't you stay right here and I'll hold some things up. It's difficult to see some of these, and so I had some enlargements made. Yeah, thank you, Arlene. This shows a death head with rather severe wings and looks like a pinwheel, something that the children would play with. It also is called a world rosette, and it's just on what they call the shoulders. This is the shoulder of the stone. Okay, this is by a different maker, and there we're losing our chin, but we've still got teeth. We have ear-looking wings and very handsome border around the edge, but you can see that down at the bottom it's a transitional stone, and they have a cherub. They have a happy face here and a sad face at the top. So this is an interesting stone. Okay? Yes. I can give you the number of them. Okay. This is a third illustration that shows another design in the death head with the teeth right at the margin. Now, the borders are interesting, and I'm not sure, yeah, this one has one of these borders. Okay, some people who write on gravestones call it a fig leaf. I don't really understand myself. I sort of think of it as an unfolding bud, but it's difficult to describe what this symbol is exactly. Now we're going to walk down the way here in a minute, and we'll see this symbol, which I call tulip. Looks like tulip to me, and it's on the border of another one. And this one, oh, this one is really hard. I finally called it coxcomb, because coxcomb blossoms have such strange, weird flowers. But this is really just for my own convenience and to categorize the many stones that are here. Now this border is one that comes along Mr. Gold and Mr. Miller. Now I wrote on the back the stones they had that had this design. There's a whole long list. It must be about 50 or 60 stones have this particular motif. Now, an associate of the Brockett's in Milford wrote an article, and what he called it was an unfolding fern. So it does look something like ferns in early spring, fiddlehead fern, and so temporarily I've been calling it that. Yes. Okay. Now these might look like insignificant stones, and they are. They're two Goodyear children, and of course we know Goodyear is a local name and famous for rubber and all that. This one says, Mabel, daughter of Mr. G-O-O-D. They didn't get any further.
Well, they're out of scope.
Yeah. Then this one is all complete and finished. This is her brother. I think probably what happened was that he gave the carver the commission to do this stone, he got tired of waiting. He waited, and the carver was busy with his farm crops or blacksmithing or whatever else he did to have an income, and he didn't finish the stone. And so we don't know the mother, because Goodyear was married twice and we're not sure which wife. We don't know the year she was born. So this is one of our mystery stones. What I tried to do when I was working with this was to connect them with a person. So I can connect her with Theophilus. And Theophilus is here, I believe, and one of his wives is there. But I guess I ended up with about 8 people that I couldn't definitely place with a husband, wife, mother, or father. And so this girl at least has a father. And her brother has a complete stone. But these are little cherubs. And you remember the tulip I showed you?
Oh.
She has a tulip down the side of her stone.
What is a cherub?
Pardon?
You lost me. What is a cherub? What is a cherub?
Oh, the round face with wings.
With wings versus just a death head.
Yes. So they turn to a smiling face instead of a death head. Okay.
They're used today, cherubs, decoration.
Like angels.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there are a few stones right behind us here because it has a different motif. If you can see, it has a bouquet of flowers and a pinwheel whirligig on the side and some decorations. That's all right. You want this? Okay. Don't hit anybody with it, though. So it was written up by Mr. Ludwig, who wrote a very important book on gravestones. He chose this and one of the Styles wives stone to demonstrate North Haven, the only 2 North Haven stones that are in Mr. Ludwig's book. Now, the funny thing about this is not a lady. You would expect with a bouquet of flowers that it would be a woman. Well, it's not. His name is Caleb Todd. Only it's spelled C-A-L-E-P T-O-O-D. Caleb Tood. Okay, the gravestone carver made a mistake again. Okay, so it's written in important gravestone books, Caleb Tood. And but it's our stone. It's a shame it's been hit by the mower lately and has a few damage spots. But this is among our most important stones. Now this one, instead of having a cherub or a death head or a bouquet of flowers, has foliage all down the side. It has this funny coxcomb thing here across the top and down the side, and an arch at the bottom. This lady is Hannah Bassett. I don't know if some of you are related to the Bassetts, but that's who this lady is. And she has a very distinctive stone because it's the only one with that sort of motif. Now, there's one here that I didn't mark, but I'll point out to you. This one has a drooping wing, and they even are ones a little similar to this that I call waterfall, because the wings are converted to lines that fall down. There's only one of a special kind that's called a portrait stone in this section. We'll go see it now. It's back in the corner. This stone is for Benjamin Brooks and his son, Reuben Brooks. And what it is a cherub here with a wig on. And this younger man has straight hair. So it's the only stone in the cemetery that is any way like a portrait, that attempts to be a portrait of the people who are buried here. And so, can you see? Reuben and Benjamin Brooks, and they lived over on State Street. I think Benjamin was a selectman. There are quite a lot. I think probably about 20 people here who have been selectmen of the town. In the notebook on where we started, on the first table, I have brought my printouts. Computers are wonderful things. So you can look up, if you'd like, how many death headstones there are, how many cherub stones, how many geometric. We haven't talked about that, but that's another type. Also, what the earliest by year. So we start with 1723 with Joel, and it lists all the subsequent graves. I also have the people who have military records and what the records are. And houses that are still standing for people who are buried in the cemetery. I'm not sure I have all of them, because what happens, of course, is that houses change owners. And so I haven't searched all of our files to find if subsequent owners might be. But I think I've gotten all the original builders. And so that has been an interesting adventure, is to try to look up the histories of these people through houses or elective offices. And I think that'll be fun when we get a book together, which we hope to do. So now let's look at the other side of the cemetery, the south.
My address now.
The south end, and
84, and that says 1779. This town.
yes, Jacob Thorpe was killed in the invasion of New Haven.
Okay. But that stone is older than this?
No, he died then.
Yeah.
And the stone was not put here until the 80s.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, they applied.
Doesn't look
Yeah, they applied for a stone. He actually has a sort of a monument down in Fairhaven, where he died.
Where was he killed? At Fort Hill or around there? Somewhere?
Yes.
At Fort Hill or something?
Yeah, some are husband and wife, some are two children, and of course that one was a father and son. Now, we had a question in the other section. Perhaps not all of you heard the answer, and the question was about a new marble stone that's in the other section, and it was Jacob Thorpe. He was killed in East Haven at the British invasion in 1779. So that's why he didn't have a stone. Phyllis Flood applied to the state to have a stone made, and she had it placed among the Thorpes, with other Thorpes. So we're not sure exactly where Jacob Thorpe is buried, but it's sort of interesting in a way. Jacob lived on this corner where Dr. Taylor's house is now. It wasn't that house, it was a different house, but after he died, his wife remarried. They had, I think, 4 or 5 children. What happened, according to the history books, he just refused to retreat, and British shot him. He is our only person that died in that campaign. There are others who died. I think there's one monument here for someone who died on a prison ship in New York Harbor. And there are others who served who came home. There was a question earlier about a map. Now, this is difficult to handle, and I'm not sure how we're going to manage it when we do a book. No, that's all right. I'm just sort of the town had this done, and this is really the way we started to number the graves so we could know who we were talking about, so you could identify it and walk to it. And so what we're hoping to do is a small version or a fold-out of this map that will go in the book. The one that was in the newspaper, the stone that was in the newspaper, is this one of Elizabeth Trumbull. We're lucky to have Benjamin Trumbull's letters, and his wife wrote to him in New York when he was serving with the Revolutionary Forces and said, "Our Betsy is just beginning to prattle and talk, and she's, you know, developing well." Well, she didn't. She died at 9 months of age, and Benjamin Trumbull took leave from his duties as chaplain with the 1st Connecticut and came home to Martha because they had had just such a tragedy 13 years earlier. This little boy died at 9 months, another Trumbull child. Their first child had died at 9 months, and their new little daughter died at 9 months. And so that's sort of a sad story, but she was devastated, and you can see by some of the poetry that she bought at that time that she was upset, very much upset by this. But he did go to war again the next year, but he only went 2 years. He didn't go for the rest of the war, but he was a great supporter of the Revolution. Now, one of our carvers had the man who did this as a mentor. Look at that nose. Okay, when you hate to have a nose like that. Well, it was easy to do in that you could start the chisel with the eyes and keep running around until you got the nose done, and you could almost do the mouth. Down. Yeah, this is another thing you look at when you're, oh, here's the double one that you saw back up on the other side.
Do you think they were actually trying to carve the face?
Yes, I think they were trying to depict the father and son. Almost all, there are quite a few double stones in here, and all the cherubs are identical, except that one. And so I think the carver was trying to, maybe he knew the people personally. Okay, now these are 2 stones with, this one has, well, a nose that has a little dip at the end. Well, and this one does too. This cherub's wings go down and are sort of loopy. This one's go up. They both have pupils in their eyes. Some stones don't have pupils. This is a straight mouth. This is a curved down mouth. Well, now this thing, I had fun with that. Gold made this stone, and I called this a top knot. It looks a lot like an Indian headdress to me. See it? Can you see a little top knot all gathered together with a little sprouty? Well, it's supposed to be a crown of types, and that's a ball type crown. And then sometimes they're wide crowns, narrow crowns. There are all sort of ways you can look at it, and one of the late borders is this, a more geometric style. So we're getting toward the end of the sandstone era. Soon after independence, a different type of stone comes in. People don't like sandstone anymore. It's sort of thought of as crumbly and deteriorating. And so some of the stones they used were polished sandstone, red but polished. And I've read that some of them came from Windsor, Connecticut. I don't know of a quarry there, and I'll have to look into it further. Another material that was used is slate. And we have quite a few slate stones. I think there are a couple down at the end over here. And there's several on the other side too. This is a transitional time before all the stones turned to marble. By about 1800, no more sandstone stones came into the cemetery. Actually, I think it's 1802 was the last one. But there's always somebody who's conservative, who wants an old style stone. And that happened in the death's head as well as the cherubs, is that maybe an older person wants the old style, not the new style. Now, thank you. One of my favorite stones is this tall one here. Isn't that impressive? Ah. All right. He has a very tall, or the cherub has a very tall crown, the spirit effigy. The wings turn up. A very graceful foliage border. It's interesting who the man is. He's the one who built a brick house on Upper Washington Avenue. It was torn down in the 1920s, but we have a picture of it at the Historical Society. So he was an innovator in brick. I was in touch with a member of a Yale group that was trying to determine where the bricks for Connecticut Hall came from. One of their theories was that this man supplied them. It's possible. It was never proved. He had 3 daughters, or they had 3 daughters. His wife is next to him here. The oldest daughter didn't marry for a while. The second daughter married a man from Middletown, where all the stones were carved. And the third daughter married the son of a carver in Middletown, and his name was David Miller. Hezekiah was his son, and what we think happened was that when Sheldon Thorpe, our town historian, talked about a temporary yard for a gravestone maker named Miller, that he was referring to this David Miller, and probably Hezekiah, his son, was in charge of the yard or helped with it, and met a local girl, this man's daughter, married her, and they moved to Middletown. The couple, he died first and she died second, but they made Hezekiah Miller administrator of their estates, both of them. By then, the younger daughter had died and Hezekiah had married the older daughter. So he married 2 Bradley daughters. Okay, when he was doing the administration, he wasn't going to get just a cheap little stone. He got a big, important stone for his father-in-law. And so that's who this is. And here is the mother.
Can't fall apart.
Yes.
Sandstone, this is still the sandstone?
Yes, this is still sandstone.
It doesn't, it deteriorates, doesn't it?
Well, if you'll look at some of the ones in the next section, even the back is crumbling a little bit. So you can see there's a hole right there.
Yeah.
So these stones need some preservation, particularly the ones that are fallen. And so I hope that we'll get that done sooner or later. Now, I have 2 or 3 more that I wanted to show you. I see a post over here. Okay. This stone that's down right here, Mrs. Bigelow, she was the grandmother of one of our Connecticut governors. It's a shame for her stone to be down. Her son was the miller, Bigelow, and her grandson was Hobart Bigelow, the governor of Connecticut and the mayor of New Haven. Behind us here, we'll jump to the end, is Elvira Cooper. The broken stone there, yes, right there. She was the last person. Well, Cooper was the first, and Cooper was the last person to be buried in the cemetery. So we'll look at hers while we're here, and then we'll move down a little bit further. 1882. I think it's on the other side. I think one thing before we leave this area about the Bradley lady, she had an epitaph that touched me. In general, I'm not too interested in the epitaphs, partly because they seem to be stock. In other words, you went to a gravestone maker and he had a bunch of them and you chose which one you wanted. So many of them do not apply to the individual exactly. But I think this one was touching. It says, "Rob me not of this little foot, that I may rest my weary bones." And so what she's asking for is a foot of space in the cemetery, and she wants it left that way. Another person that has an interesting epitaph is down a little further, and this is what her husband composed for her. She left behind a deeply affected husband to mourn the loss of a discreet, amiable, and affectionate companion. Okay. Exercise alone parental affection toward the infant of her last moments. She was a brand new mother. A parent of a virtuous and beloved daughter. Virtuous now. Okay. Brothers and sisters of the dear and most kindly affected sister, and the poor needy. Of a liberal and most cordial benefactress, the unvaried tenor of her life was exemplary and truly Christian. She is gone to receive a crown of immortal glory. Okay. Said it all. Okay. Now.
It's about as tall as you are.
Now we have a marble one down front that we want to look at that has an interesting epitaph.
Gloria.
Yes.
These stones, this ground doesn't have stones. Is that a glacier, do you suppose?
I don't know. That's an interesting question, and Lester is asking about these stones. And the answer is that he knows that in Monterey Cemetery there are stones, boulders, similar to these that have some initials that are markers. And they are the earliest markers in North Haven. And so his is a good question. And so we don't know, but we're not going to move them.
It all looks sort of rolling in the glacier, kind of like it's all rounded corners. You know.
This is marble, although it is not a high quality, and you can see that it's flaking at the top particularly. Can't see it too well, but it has a cherub. And so it's a transitional stone. It's a marble with cherub, not a sandstone. This is what the epitaph says, and it's partly because Sheldon Thorpe recorded it that we know exactly what it says, because it's really not readable. Nor wealth, nor wit, nor youthful charms, nor lover's tender care could save 1 hour from death's cold arm, nor melt his heart to spare big prospects of a nuptial bed. Okay, she was engaged and about to be married when she suddenly died. And all that lovers know, my sad fate shall be vanished and left my friends in woe. Look on my tomb, and fit for heaven, my death should teach you this: immortal life was only given to fit for endless bliss. So not only did she have an interesting epitaph and one that seems to be written particularly for her, not a standard verse, but I can't find her. I can't find her in Jacobus. I can't find her in Trumbull's Minutes of his Church or St. John's Church. I have found an Elizabeth Bishop in Guilford in New Haven County, but she doesn't match the age that's described here. It's close, but not close enough. The Barber collection gives newspaper and other death notices, and I have been to Hartford to check that, and I've also consulted the probate records in Hartford. So I really use Jacobus probably as the final authority if I had a conflict. A few things in the WPA, it was obvious that they mistranscribed or misspelt something, and so I've just tried to correct that. I believe what I'll do is just give you a quick synopsis of what happened next. Marble came in, and Mr. Gold, who had a house and a shop in New Haven, died, and his house was bought by a man named Daniel Ritter. So Daniel Ritter did the marble work on Benjamin Trumbull's stone, the large stone with the acorn on top. He also did the stone of Trumbull's son-in-law. It's on the ground right over here. It has a forest of trees and an urn. It's really a rather handsome stone. And there's one similar to it on the other side.
How about the one like a table? Isn't that a...
Yes, I meant to call your attention. The table here is called a table stone, and that's James Bishop, and his is rather early. I told you about Isaac Stiles, the crypt. Down further, you'll see a urn on a white marble urn before you come to the George Washington Monument type. That's Ives, and several of these on different sides will describe, I'm the last of the family, and I have erected this monument in honor of all these people. And that's true of the pink granite stone, which was Mr. Dr. Foote's.
Yeah.
And now Dr. Foote lives on the corner here.
Yes.
Benjamin Trumbull's grave is here, and his house is the blue house up on the hill. And we have another one, another daughter of Benjamin Trumbull. I didn't show you their grave, but it's on the far side, and they lived in the community house. And so some of the people who are here lived in nearby homes, and others lived farther away. But as marble came in, inventiveness and personal expression lessened. So they had such as the trees or willow and urn that you could choose your style. There's some really rather handsome ones with a wreath encircling the inscription. But people who are really interested in folk art are most interested in the period before marble. So what we have here is an outdoor museum, something we can...
Property?
Pardon?
Do the Pierponts still own this property?
No. Actually, in 1725, his will was finally probated, and he said in his will he wanted 6 or 8 acres left to the community, and he named 2 pieces of property. what they did was to give 6 acres from one piece and 6 acres from another. Now, we know that this is not 12 acres, but it was given to the church, and the church either built on or disposed or rented various properties around town. You can see the records. And so this, I think, is probably only an acre or two now.
The church was just south of here a little bit, wasn't it?
Yes.
The first church.
On the green. And they moved it off
Where was the first church, do you know?
in this area.
In that area?
And it had a door on the long side. In other words, not in the end like we have now, but like East Haven has. East Haven has a door on a double door on the long side. And so what they were trying to do was negate their English ancestry and have a Puritan church.
Tell them how the minister was brought to church in the old days before they had the Elms people.
But
That was kind of with the drums, you know.
yeah, that's true. Actually, there are a lot of interesting stories, and I've started sort of gathering some. I think one of the sticks right in this area is Giles Pierpont, a marble stone, and he was the wealthiest man on the tax rolls the first year that we had a tax assessment. This was when no, he wasn't Brickyard. He owned 200 acres of land and 3 to 6 houses, 6 smokes it was called, and cattle and sheep and horses. So a lot of these people are interesting, but I think we have covered the folk art part of it. Yes, you have. No. There is a part of the town government that administers all the cemeteries, but we don't have a particular one for this cemetery. The Pierponts, actually, if you look at them, Pierponts are all across the front. And that's why I think maybe this girl was going to marry a Pierpont. Practically all the stones here are Pierponts, except for a few that are Sacketts. So I sort of looked to see if I could figure who it was, and I found a couple possibilities, but no way to prove it. Now, Mr. Trumbull's son-in-law, the one with the flag that I told you had the nice woodsy scene, he's here because he married a Pierpont first. His first wife was a Pierpont. His second wife was a Trumbull, and so the 3 of them are buried there. If you're curious about the fence, family named Walter erected that fence, and like many others, it says, "I'm the last of the line, the last son." And so they enclosed it with their own little fence. But it wasn't the only fence like that. There was a fence like that around the whole cemetery until World War II, when the fence was taken down and the metal parts given to the scrap drive. And so they had a fence around the whole place, not just their plot.
Keep the animals out. That's what it was for.
Yeah.
Keep the animals out.
And so that concrete and metal fence was replaced with the present hedge. Some of the people that are next to the hedge in the back are strong supporters of the Episcopal Church, which they're closer to. And some of the people up here, the Pierponts, are closer to the Congregational Church. There are other interesting facets like that. I have printouts of all the different categories that I talked to you about, and if you'd like, you're welcome to look at the notebook, and hopefully by a year or so from now we'll have a book.
Sure.
How much later than this place was Monterey Cemetery?
Monterey's was started first.
First? Oh, well,
Yes.
that's right. There's one stone for a lady came from Hartford there with just initials on it. Yeah, she was the first.
They stopped here about 1825, didn't they? Stopped burying?
No. Elvira Cooper, the one up near the hedge that I pointed out, 1882.
82?
Yes. So for the last 40 years,
Close.
yeah, the cemetery over on Elm Street the association was started in 35.
Oh, 1835.
1835, and it really, after 1841, there were no children buried here.
Oh,
All of them went to family plots
yeah.
in Elm Street Cemetery. And so for the last 40 years, only there was somebody buried only about 20 of those 40 years.
Yeah.
And so if your mother and father were buried here, you might want to be buried in this cemetery, not in the other one. And I did come across one note from a sexton's report. He said he charged an extra $1 because he had to clear off the briars from the from the when he had to dig the grave. And so we do have a sexton's book, but most of the reports are from Elm Street Cemetery.
Yeah.
So we don't have a sexton's report for this cemetery. But we do have the various listings that I told you about, the WPA, the Sheldon Thorpe listing. We be glad to help you if you want to investigate who your relatives are, if you're related to anyone here, or if you're just interested in the gravestones. I hope that my description of the differences will help you. Remember that their faces are round, oval, pixie-ish with a little pointed chin, or what is the other one? Yeah. Oh, pear-shaped. Yeah, inverted pear. It's big top with a funny little chin. Look at the wings. They are feathered, serrated. Some look like big ears. I call them ear wings.
Who's buried there is more interesting.
Yeah, and some people call them ram's horns.
Yeah.
It would look something like that.
I'd like to ask where you got that blueprint for the
Yes.
graveyard.
Yes, Mr. Palmieri's office has it.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
town engineer.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm planning, when we do the book, to include a copy of that.
Oh, that'd be good.
So it'll have to be folded up pretty small. It'll be a challenge. But I've enjoyed, I guess I've been working on my computer at home, looking out the bay window for about 3 years now. So off and on. And so it's been fun and interesting, and thank all of you so much for coming to listen about it.
Oh, pleased to have you do this for us.